My name is Julie Marvel. We have Anne Marie with us saying hello.
Hello,
Hi.
everyone.
Hi. So nice to have you. We're very excited to do our very first live interview. So those of you that have been doing lives, we've been watching and paying attention, and we love collaborating with other women that are uplifting and supporting women. And Anne Marie and I have so much in common in terms of women in midlife, going through transition, looking for support and encouragement. And we both have a history of working with these kinds of women and creating communities with these kind of women. I think we both are big community advocates. We're big believers in women supporting each other through community. So I'm so happy that everyone is here today. And I have to say that Substack is where we're doing this live today because we feel like Substack is one of the most up and coming, warm and welcoming communities that we've discovered. It's different from other social media platforms. We feel like this is just a wonderful place to gather. Hi, Sarah. And so if you're chiming in with us, please say hello in the chat. We'll be watching the chat during our video, and we would love to interact with you if you have questions. And please feel free to chime in. So I would like to introduce to you Anne Marie, if you will tell us all about who you are and what you're doing here on Substack.
I would be happy to. Thanks for having me again, Julie.
Yeah.
And hi to everybody who's watching. I started on Substack just 6 weeks ago on June 1st, really looking for an outlet for my writing and to find women in a similar situation as myself going through midlife and struggling a little bit with it. I had a bunch of things happen at the same time for me. I call this a sort of collision, a midlife collision instead of a crisis. I was dealing with the regular midlife stuff, menopause and all of that, but also some chronic illness. Sadly, I lost my beloved mom in the middle of all of it. One of my best friends was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at the age of 50, and that progressed quickly. And so at the same time I was losing my mom, I was losing my really close friend. I was diagnosed with late diagnosed ADHD. There was just so much happening, and I was having trouble processing it all. And I just felt like I was drowning at times. So I thought I need to find a way to connect with other people in the same boat. And I have a great support system, but I thought I'm missing another piece. I couldn't quite name it, but my friends kept saying, "You're a writer, you need to be on Substack." So I thought, okay, I'm going to try that. And I was amazed at what I found. I
Yeah.
started writing. I promised myself and my readers that I was just going to give them raw and honest and authentic. And in doing that, people just seemed to show up and
Yeah.
say, "Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for being honest. And here's my story." And other people would comment on that comment and say, "Oh, I totally see myself in your story." And it wasn't even mine, it was somebody else's. And it
Yeah.
just felt like community was happening really organically. I wasn't doing a thing to facilitate it. I was just sharing a story.
Mm-hmm.
And so, much like Julie is somebody who really values community and women supporting women, my brain just started turning and I
Yeah.
thought, there's something here. What can I do about it?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I love that. Well, we have one of the best things that we have in common is that we are both educators. So I taught an elementary school level. I have a master's in education. Anne Marie teaches at the collegiate level, but also some secondary school as well, right?
Yes, high school.
Yeah, yeah. So we have that in common. And so we're naturally drawn to teaching others and educating anyone, when you're a teacher, you're sort of born with the gift and the abilities to always want to serve and give your information and help others and build them up. And so one of the reasons, I mean, it's just the story of how we met is so amazing, I think, because we were just messaging. We hadn't even done a Zoom call, and she invited me to her channel. So she's got her personal Substack and then her channel, which is Midlife You. And she invited me to come onto a Google Meet. And I met with maybe 10 or 12 different women, all very similar stories to ours. And it was just such a lovely call. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Midlife You? I know it's in the infant stages, but it's just such a cool idea.
Yeah, happy to. So, I am a university professor, and I actually started my Substack as midlife professor, and it was fine. I had a little trouble with the professor piece, which is hilarious because I literally am a professor. I've been teaching college students for nearly 30 years, but we all have some imposter syndrome, maybe. But also, I don't actually have my students call me professor. I use my first name, so which is just funny. So that wasn't really totally working for me, but I thought I'd go with it. But then as I saw this community naturally forming, I thought, there's something here. What if I call it midlife university? And, that's obviously more community oriented than professor, which is singular. But I thought
Yes.
midlife university, that sounds too formal and stuffy. Like, how about just midlife you? And because, universities have been my home forever. I love college so much I never left, right? So, I thought midlife you, I'll use some of the framework of university and all the good stuff and get rid of all the bureaucracy and the stuff we don't like about it, right? We could have classes and faculty, and it would all be, of course, very non-conventional, but a way for us to kind of come together, learn together.
Hmm.
And I just kind of went with that crazy idea. And before I had thought it all through or put it all together, I started reaching out to women who I
Yes.
saw doing something similar, right?
Mhm.
Writing honestly, trying to bring women together and said, hey, would you be part of the inaugural faculty of Midlife U? Totally honest, it's not all put together yet, but I want you to be a part of it. Julie was one of those people.
Yay.
And, of course, I got some questions like, "Just so you know, I'm not a real teacher." And I said, "Oh, I know, I realize that," or, "I'm not a doctor in, like, the menopause world.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
understand, I know that." And what was beautiful about it is that nobody said no. Nobody.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Yes, I did get the, "Just so you know, I'm not really a teacher," but nobody said no. I was actually just
Oh,
writing about this, about how it all
yeah.
began. And
Mhm.
that blew my mind. We talk, I think, sometimes about, being brave enough to ask somebody something, to
Yeah.
ask a big question. And that's how it felt. And I just got yes after yes after yes, which was really affirming for me what you and I were seeing already,
Yes.
right? Which is
Yes.
that women want to come together and talk about these things, which was so
Right.
exciting to me. So I kind of put this faculty in place before the university was built.
Right? You had
So
everybody lined up.
yes, they really did, which is beautiful. So we put together excuse me. We put together this, kind of meet and greet that Julie referred to, a
Mhm.
virtual, space where we could come together. And I just said, "Hi, welcome. Let's build this thing together and tell us who you are." And the inaugural faculty members would say who they were and why they wanted to be a part of it. And the other women who were there shared too. And we just all kind of, I think, watched with smiles on our faces and an excitement as woman after woman told a part of her story, and everyone started to see,
Mhm.
that sounds like me. That's not
Yes.
quite me, but I relate. Or I just feel seen. This feels like community. I feel like I belong. And wow,
Mhm.
maybe I'm not alone.
That's right.
And it just felt so nice, didn't it, Julie?
Yes, it's incredible, and with your call and the calls that I've done, the magic is that people are chiming in from all around the world, all over
Yes.
the world, and so if you're watching right now, please put in the chat where you are watching from,
Yeah.
because it's incredible. A couple days ago, I did a call, we had someone from Scotland, someone from New Zealand, someone from Seattle, some couple from Virginia, and I'm in Florida, and you're in Virginia, right?
I'm in Virginia, from New
Yeah,
York, but I'm in Virginia
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yep.
So a community like this brings in women from all around the world that we feel like we're so different from, but what ends up happening is that we learn that we're all going through very similar experiences. And for those of you that don't know my story is almost flipped on its head, where I started with in-person community with women in my local area. So after I got divorced in 2018, I was very isolated. I felt very lonely. I was in this transitional period where I was trying to heal. And I started a lunch group for women in my area. And we met once a week for lunch at different restaurants, and it started to grow. And I started to notice a pattern of who was coming to our events. And it was women that were typically in transition. It was women that were going through divorce, maybe widowed, empty nester, recently retired, just moved to the area, or loss of a loved one and caregiving. And those times in your life are when, you realize you've been taking care of everyone else your whole life, committed to everyone else. And then you get to this time of transition and you realize that you don't even know who you are anymore. You feel a little lost. You don't know who you want to spend time with or what kinds of things you want to do or where you're going to find those people. And so community becomes a very important piece of the puzzle, because when we come together and we exchange the ideas and thoughts that we're all actually feeling the same things and going through the same difficult times during this transition, we feel supported, we feel seen, we feel, it's not a sad situation that we're sharing stories that might be challenging. It's an uplifting situation where you feel like I'm not the only one. And so I did that for many years. I ran in-person events, and my group became very large. And then now I've moved that to this online space. And so through friends like Anne Marie, we're really trying to recreate the same situation here on Substack and in other places online. But I'm so excited. So why don't you tell everyone about Midlife You in terms of like how, if they're interested in getting involved, and where they can follow and get on board with what you're doing.
Yes, and before I do, I just wanna say, if you lost my head for a minute, it's because I was trying to say hi to people in the chat, and
Oh,
I
funny.
might have just sort of disappeared. I was headless for a while,
Well,
perhaps.
this is both of
Um,
our first live. We've never done Substack Live, so we're
I've
learning
done
as we
this
go
before.
here. We're not
I just had
trying to
to
be
say hi to
perfect.
a
We're just
couple
trying to get it
people.
out there.
To Julie's point about, people from all over the world and making these connections, I happened to see in the chat, a woman named Sarah, who said that, we have some geography, in common, not only like where we're from, but also, she's in the UK. I've spent a ton of time in England and I'm just obsessed with the UK. I take
Yes.
students to London every year. So, that's a lovely connection. And then
Yeah.
I see, and I won't name this person because they might not want to be named, but I have one of my teenage writer friends here who I've met on
Oh,
Substack,
how
and I'm just
exciting.
thrilled to have her. She's a very talented young woman,
Wonderful.
and that means a lot to me because one thing I've discovered is that even though this is midlife you, um, I was actually a little worried at first because what if people see it and think, well, this is definitely not for me because I'm not quite there or I'm a little past midlife? Because I think a lot of what Julie and I are both talking about really transcends age or phase because we're talking about friendship and connection
Hmm.
and sharing
Hmm.
stories. And that really is kind of ageless.
Yeah.
So I had a lovely get together with Midlife You women last night. We just called it a community conversation. We named it What Happens When Women Gather. And we had women between the ages of, I want to say 35 and 70. Now,
Hmm.
that is bigger than midlife, right?
That's quite a range. Yes.
Yes, and I just loved that because so many of the themes that we're hitting on are just broad, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
We talking about, trying to figure out who you are and where you belong. We felt that as teenagers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, women at 70 are like, I'm finally coming into myself. I'm living my life exactly the way I want to.
Hmm.
And loving it. Like
Yes.
70 is not old to me, right? I'm like
Right.
excited and energetic. So that's a little bit of a tangent, but I wanted to share that because I think that's an important piece here. Women have so much in
Yeah.
common, even if we're not the same age or in the same phase of life, right?
Mhm. Well, yeah, I've actually noticed that too, that now that I'm in more of the online space, that there's a wider age range that I'm interacting with. Because if you think about it, when you focus on transition can happen when you graduate college and now you're in the real world. Transition can happen when you get married and you
Hmm.
start a family. Transition can happen if you were working and now you become a stay-at-home mom, or
Yeah.
when you go from being a stay-at-home mom to going back into the workforce. All of those times in your life are really big transitions, or if you move to a new area with your family, it's like starting at rock bottom and you kind of lose yourself a little bit and you're not sure how to move forward and how to rebuild like, what does my identity look like now that I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm not in a career and I have this baby and I think I'm going to be busy all the time, but really I'm just sitting on the sofa feeding this baby all day. And it's just a weird feeling when you go through those changes. The
Yeah.
transitions go across all of the ages. And I think that for us to come together and to support one another through any kind of transition is a beautiful thing. I love it.
I agree. And I didn't answer your question because I really
That's
wanted
okay.
to
Let's
say
go.
that, but I'll get back to it. So
Yeah.
Julie wanted me to explain, how people can get involved in midlife you if they want to. Again, it's still growing and I feel like the community is building it together, which is really exciting. This is not just me, with this crazy idea that I'll just build a university today.
Right?
It's really a community effort. But what it looks like at the moment is that we are doing live conversations. This is sort of a live. When I say
Hmm.
live conversation, I mean like a Zoom gathering where people are
Right.
just clicking a link and coming in and having a conversation that can be, really very sort of open. Like the what happens when women gather. There wasn't a topic, right? It was just, hey, everyone go around and whoever's comfortable sharing, tell us who you are and what brings you here. And I made it very clear you can be here to listen
Hmm.
or to share or both, right?
Yeah.
Anything is fine. And we had a combination, which was really nice. And so people just kind of told a little bit about their story and listened to other stories. And it was great because people felt comfortable kind of jumping in rather than like, I better sit and wait until the person completely finishes and then like it's my turn. It was like, oh, I love that you just said that because in my experience, and it really became a conversation, which
That's
was just fantastic. I loved
yeah.
that. So we'll do those things. We're also going to have, when I'm thinking of like class sessions, with some of these faculty members. And frankly, anybody else who feels like they have a story they want to tell can just DM me and we'll make it happen too. And what's important to me is, and Julie wrote about this, I think, in one of her notes, this idea that knowledge comes from a variety of sources, right? I live in the academic world, and so I'm with people who are considered experts in their field, and that's great.
Hmm.
We value knowledge from, research and expertise and lots of schooling, but that's not the only place we get it. I really value also, and I know Julie does, the idea of lived experience and hard-earned wisdom,
Hmm.
right? So some of
Yeah.
our faculty members, don't have a degree in whatever it is they're going to talk to us about. They've just lived it,
Yeah.
right? And I think
Yeah.
that's so valuable. And I know for me, as a woman in this phase, or frankly, any phase, if there's something I'm going through and it has anything to do with, say, medicine at all, right? Sure, I want a medical opinion, but I really want to talk to a woman who has lived through that.
For sure.
You
Yes.
know? And one
Yes.
one thing that's been coming up a lot, and I've personally not experienced this yet, is caregiving. We
Hmm.
talk about the sandwich generation. Some of us are still raising kids even if they're a bit older, but we're
Yeah.
also providing care to our parents. And I think if I were in that boat, sure, I'd wanna know from the medical community, what kind of care can I provide to my parent to keep
Mhm.
to ensure that they're physically safe and well and,
Yeah.
nutrition and all of that. But
Right.
I would love to talk with a woman who's been providing care to their parent for a couple of
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
and ask them what's been the toughest, what's been the most surprising,
Mhm.
where are you finding moments of joy? And
Yeah.
so we're bringing in people with all sorts of knowledge so
Yeah.
we can all learn from each other. The idea that we're right in this community. We don't have to go outside of Substack. Right in our
Yeah.
community, we're the teachers and we're the learners. Why not
Yes.
celebrate our
Fair.
wisdom, right?
Yes.
We don't have
Yeah.
to go somewhere else. It's right
Right.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of the overall concept. And because I happen to be a writer, I can't offer people anything in the way of expertise around midlife, right? I came here looking for that. That's not me.
Right?
be smart, be smart enough to know when you're not smart enough, right? Is an expression I love. But what I can
Right.
offer is writing workshops. And that's something I'm
Yes.
going to be doing if anyone
Yes.
is interested.
Yeah, I think this is a great platform for that. And
Hmm.
so it sounds like you're going to do instructional writing workshops, but you're also going to do accountability writing
Hmm.
works where you're online and everyone on the call is just writing because it keeps you accountable to the
Yeah.
activity that you're trying to accomplish. Isn't that
Yeah.
right? you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so 2 different models really.
right.
We are, very casual at Midlife U. So, for example, our writing accountability group is called Shut Up and Write.
I love that. That's right. That's what
We're
it's
not
called.
fancy here.
Yeah.
Um, we're very inclusive, just show up as you are,
That's
just,
right.
be
Right.
yourself. And I can't take credit for, the writing accountability group idea. Shut Up and Write is Midlife You. We can take credit for that one. In fact, our one of the inaugural faculty members, Tracy, she's Tales of an Aging Wonder Woman. She gets
Uh-huh.
credit for that title, which I
Love
love.
that. Yeah.
Um, so writing accountability groups, this really comes from, Morning Pages, if anyone's aware of that. It's an idea that comes from, Julia Cameron is the
Okay.
author, and she has some books and a whole philosophy around writing, which suggests that, make it kind of the first thing you do in the morning and,
Mhm.
kind of jot anything that's in your brain that's going to get in the way of your
Mhm.
getting into the writing zone. My grocery list, and this is what I'm
Yeah.
worried about. And I know I
The
can't
brain
forget
dump.
this later in the day.
Yeah.
Get it out. Yes,
Yeah.
the dump, right?
Yeah.
And then once your head is clear, you can begin writing. And accountability can help us. So if you're somebody who, gee, I wish I could write every day, but it's never going to happen. Or all I want is an hour a week, but I keep just not getting there.
Mhm.
Make the time and commit to it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because we make time for everybody and everything else. So if you have a time of day or an appointment, so to speak, once a week, and
Yeah.
other people are involved, you might be more likely to do it.
Oh, it's so
So,
true. We're
yes,
so
isn't
good
it?
at being accountable to everyone else, and we always come last on the list. So I love any concept of an accountability partner or accountability groups or coaches and even personal trainers. Anything in that realm is going to help you. And so all you have to do is commit to the accountability first, and then now you've got someone to be accountable to. And I think that's
Exactly.
beautiful. Yeah.
Exactly, and this is totally free, for anybody who subscribes to Midlife U, like, we're not gonna charge you to do this. We're gonna
Right.
provide the space, you bring the words, and we'll
Yeah.
just be together in community, so,
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
show up and we all very quickly say, "Hi, this is me, and, what I hope to work on is X," and then we
Yeah.
write for nearly an hour, and then at the end, we go around and say, "Here's my report," which could be, "I did exactly what I set out to do, great for you,"
Yes.
or yeah, that didn't work out very well. I'll try again next time, which is fine, but you were there, right?
Yeah.
You
Right. I
were
mean, the
there.
only way you have good days is if you have bad days or good experiences is when you have bad experiences. And I just think that's beautiful. You're doing it first thing in the morning. You're doing other kinds of workshops. You're bringing in different people with different life experiences. And, I just love that. And so going back a little bit to what you were saying about caregivers, and I'm just going to pause for a second. Hi to everyone in the chat. I see Elizabeth and Sarah and Dora and Myrna and Manpreet. If you guys are chiming in, please put in the chat where you're coming from. If you want to put your Substack in there, you can. But I just wanted to say a quick hello. But anyway, going back to the
Julie, wait,
caregivers.
let me jump
Yes.
in. You
Okay.
mentioned Dora. Mrs.
Yes.
Myers is my former English teacher,
Ah,
and Julie and I are both
another teacher.
educators. Is this
Okay.
not the most beautiful thing? Hi, Mrs.
Mrs.
Myers. I'm so glad
Myers.
you're here. But educators
Yay.
are just the best, right?
I
It just
know.
keeps sort of cycling, right?
And talking about identity, when you become a teacher, you go from a first and a last name to no one knows your first name. You're just a Miss or a Mrs. after that, right? No one knows I didn't know anyone's first name in the school I taught at.
I'm still Miss
So,
Gardenier to the high school kids I taught
right?
who now have found me on Facebook. And I was so young when I taught high school that they're not that far apart in age with me
Right.
now. So, they're married with children and have wonderful careers. And it's just
Yes.
really funny for us to be connected. And so I'll occasionally get a message that says, "Hi, Miss Gardenier." And I'll say, "That's not even my name anymore."
Right? I don't have that name anymore.
Please call me
Oh my
Henry. It's
gosh,
adorable.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, what we were talking about with caregivers, I think caregivers is one of those transitions that I didn't have a lot of experience with. And now that I'm in more of the online space, I'm sort of wondering if it's because those people weren't available to come to the in-person events, right? They're caregiving. And I've done
Yeah.
that for my husband on occasion. So
Hmm.
you on the online space, this is such a beautiful way for a caregiver to feel connected back into a community of women.
Hmm.
And it all really boils down to story, I believe. I'm a big believer in story. And so when I was hosting in-person events, what we did was every other Tuesday we would have an event called What's Your Story? And I would interview a speaker ahead of time and vet them. And I brought in public speakers, but they were all women with all very interesting stories to tell. Usually they would talk about a challenging time in their life. And so we would bring in a group of women, 50 women in the room, in a little tea room, and the woman would get up in front and the honored speaker would tell her story. And the story would be about a challenging time in her life, the beginning, the middle, the end, the emotions that she went through. Who was her support system? How did she get through it? What helped her get through it? And then at the end, she would sort of touch on a takeaway or a theme like resilience or perseverance or honesty. And she would bring with her three questions, and we would break into small groups after she was done speaking. And the women had an opportunity to answer those questions in small groups about the theme. And I tell you what, women just cracked open in an appropriate environment for women to share their stories. You would not believe the stories that I've heard. And so I'm such a firm believer in us sharing our stories, not so that people will feel sorry for us or that, we're complaining. It's about resonating with someone and understanding that you're not alone. And, you've had some health challenges. And if you share your health challenges with someone else, it's going to be helpful. If you can help one person by sharing what your experiences are, it's just such a beautiful thing. So we've got what you're doing with the university, you've got your writing clinics, you've got your meet and greets where you're just mingling and talking and getting to know each other. I'm doing similar things myself. I'm doing a podcast. I've got the community on Substack, and then I do have a website also. But do you have a website that you're wanting to direct people to? Or are you keeping everything on Substack?
We're
Let's talk.
building it, right? Like I
Okay.
said, I'm building this as I go with
Right.
community help,
I
right?
love it.
I just
Yeah.
I just saw this need and just kind of went with it. And I must tell you that this has been a great lesson for me personally. I am what I call a recovering perfectionist. Um,
And
and
I'm
this is how
not,
I
and I told her this, I go, "I'm not a perfectionist, so you're just gonna have to roll with me."
and you're perfect for me because I'm really working on this in my life.
That's
And it's
good.
great that I teach honor students because I really understand them because I was that
Mhm.
kid.
Yeah,
And I like to tell them things like, perfection is the enemy of progress.
so true.
Occasionally, we'll have students who, and these are straight A students, many of whom are going to med school. Like these are accomplished kids who
Right,
don't turn in their work. And it's very surprising because that doesn't happen very often. And we'll say, hi, I noticed you didn't turn in your work. Is everything okay? And with a little, prompting, they'll
prodding.
admit that it wasn't ready yet.
Oh,
It was done, and
yeah,
they didn't feel it was good enough to submit, and rather than embarrass themselves
yeah,
submitting it to their professor, they just didn't submit it,
yeah,
and when I started learning that that's what people were doing, that hit me really hard because I don't know that I ever went to that extreme to not hand in my
right.
work, but I understand that feeling of, if I don't think this is ready, for the public, so to speak, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah,
And I've really worked really hard, and frankly, midlife has almost forced me
yeah,
to do this, right? Because I can't keep up,
right?
at the same level as I used to, but it's really made me more comfortable with just kind of going with things and recognizing that we're all imperfectly perfect,
Yeah,
and, because 'cause I've always seen that in other people. I've never judged anybody else for not being perfect. I've
of
only put that
course.
on myself. So, I'm really having fun with this. I'm putting this out there. This is
Yeah,
not built. This isn't ready
yeah,
necessarily, but let's do it because there's a need and let's address it. And
yes,
let's do it together.
yeah.
And I'll tell you that one of the things that really lit the fire for me was I read the statistic. And this is World Health Organization. So this is absolutely legitimate, credible, and all that.
Yeah.
By 2030, 4 years from now, 1.2 billion with a B, 1.2 billion women will be in menopause.
Wow.
So we are, at least those of us in that phase, are large in number and only getting
Yeah,
bigger, right?
for
And if Julie and I and many of us are seeing that there's this need for community and, learning from one another now, I think that's just going to grow. We're just seeing it in this little corner of Substack, right?
Yeah.
So I like this idea of let's just gather. Nobody has all the answers,
Right,
but
right.
let's do it,
Well,
right?
and I think, when we think about it's really just about being vulnerable is what it
Mhm.
is, right? And so when you think about vulnerability, it kind of makes you feel scared or icky almost like no way, I'm not doing that. I don't want to be vulnerable. That's a bad quality. But when you ask someone if they think it's an admirable quality in someone else. If someone else is willing to be vulnerable, it's a very attractive quality. If someone opens up to you and they're trusting you with opening up and showing who they really are. I mean, I'm heavily flawed and here it is, you know.
Mhm.
But that is such a good quality and it allows others to put their guard down and to trust you sooner because they know that what you see is what you get. We're none of us are perfect. And so I'm not perfect. And if I can see your imperfections, I feel like, okay, I can show my imperfections. And additionally, almost separate from that, but along the same lines, when you're trying to achieve something, the only way you get to success is by failure, right? So we have to fail, and failure is information, right? So when we have a mistake, we have something that isn't a success, that tells us the information that this worked and this didn't work. Now, next time we do it differently or we
Mhm.
make these adjustments, and it's really just information. It's not a personal
Mhm.
default or anything like that. It really just is the more times you have failure, if you will. I don't really like to call it that, but those kinds of things happen. That's just building you up in the right direction. Now you know what direction to go. Don't you agree?
Yes, absolutely. We learn so much from that. And as educators, I find this really amusing because I feel like I give my students really positive messages that make a difference for them, but I don't always follow them for myself. But I'm
Right.
getting better at that. I really
Yes.
am. I'm getting
Yes.
better at that. And
Yeah.
I'll have to say that last night when we gathered, that women, what happens when women gather together is just this open community conversation. I've been having some weird Wi-Fi computer stuff, and the first link that I shared to get people together wasn't working, and I couldn't figure out why. So there was this little bit of panic, and it really wasn't, "Oh, I'm not perfect," panic. It was, "I don't think people are going to be able to get together," right? So I was trying
Right.
to fix it, and when it finally worked, and we all got together, we were kind of laughing about it, and it was the first community conversation, and so I sort of said, "Well, I'm not sure this bodes well for where this is going." And we all just laughed, and I
Who
thank
cares?
everybody for just sticking with me as I figured it out, and,
Yeah.
I didn't realize it at the time, but like you're saying, Julie, that probably made everybody feel really comfortable, right?
Right.
You know,
Right.
I'm the one that brought this thing together, and I'm facilitating, and I couldn't even
And I
make
have
it
no idea what
start,
I'm doing. I know. Well, that was
right?
today. I was like, well, we're just going to do this. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, no one will know. Right.
Yes, and then throughout the time, and by the way, we talked for about an hour and a half, which was
Wow.
not planned. We set it for an hour, and we just kept talking. One of the women said, "I have to be honest, I just finished working out. You can tell I'm in workout gear, and I didn't know if I was gonna join because I didn't have time to do anything.
Yeah. I'm not on
But I was
camera.
like, "You know what?
It's
If
okay.
I don't go because I'm in workout clothes, I miss it."
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to me,
It's
so I
so
just
true.
came. And then
Yeah.
another woman said, "Ball cap, no
Yeah.
makeup." I'm
Yeah.
so glad that we were kind of all feeling the same thing, that
Yeah.
we're just showing up as ourselves.
Yep.
Who are we trying to impress? Like, why do you need
Yeah.
makeup for a conversation with women, right?
Yeah.
Why does the tech need to be perfect? This is the
Right.
point, right?
Yes.
We're gonna
Yes.
show up as our authentic selves, and
Yes.
it was kind of a beautiful moment.
That is wonderful.
Um, and to your point about vulnerability, for those of you who have already checked out Midlife You probably know this. The really the moment that I realized something needed to happen here, that we needed to all get together is, I posted a picture of myself in notes, and it was a picture of myself crying in my car. I'll be honest, I never thought I would do anything like this in my life, but it happened. I was having a terrible
Wow.
morning. I ended up hitting a car in the parking lot while parking. Don't ask me how that happened.
Oh my goodness.
It was just one of those, like, "What is going on?" Like, I can't manage life right now.
Yeah.
And I had just turned 50. My sister had come in from New York to spend the weekend with me. We're very close. We had the best time. She had just left, and here I am crying in my car. I've just
Yeah.
left a note for the woman whose car I hit. I leave it on her dash, and then I come back into my car, and I just start crying, and then I take a picture with every intention to send it to my sister and say, "See what happens when you leave?" Which
Oh.
is just something that the 2 of us would do.
Right.
And then it just occurred to me, I promised that I would show up as raw and honest, as authentic as I really could be on Substack. I'm gonna share this
Look
because
at
this is
you.
the real deal.
There's the accountability to yourself.
Yes.
I'm so
And
proud of
so
you.
I posted it on Notes and, with a little caption about what was going on. And, um, and then after I did it, I thought, well, that was intense.
What's
But so many people responded and
Oh.
and not just responded, but thank you for sharing that. Somebody
Mhm.
wrote, that is a perfect photo,
Oh,
which
wow.
just really hit me. And then
Who
other
knew?
people, so sorry you're having a bad day. Hope tomorrow's better. I've had just that kind of day myself. I understand. Some
Oh,
people checked in with me the next day to say, I hope today is better.
see
And
how
I didn't know
beautiful that
any of
is.
these people, total
Wow.
strangers.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this
Yeah.
is a beautiful place. I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm here. And something special is happening,
Yeah. I
right?
agree. I agree. I agree. I love it here. I'm having so much fun and let's do this again. Let's do
Yes.
this again. This is so wonderful. And, I intend to bring lots of people on lives. I want it to, I want to introduce people and, show people different communities. But then once we get past the introductions, we can go into like topic based conversations where we're
Yeah.
really diving in and we can bring more people into our circle and really help to create a conversation around what we're going through. We don't necessarily need to be experts, but we're living it and walking it and breathing it. And so we want to share and we want others to feel like they belong and that you can, even if you're not comfortable going on a live video, you can be in the chat, you can watch and you can engage with us. And that's just, I think, both of our hope for this community
Mhm.
to grow, to connect, and to really build something special. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I invite everybody here to please follow along with what Julia's doing and visit Midlife U.
Yeah.
I'll actually be posting a poll to see what kind of writing
Okay.
workshops people might be interested in. Because
Right.
again, like I want this to be our thing.
Yeah.
I want it to work for people and would love to see you all at these lives, at the community conversations. And Julie, what's the next thing they should be looking for from you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of on Substack right now. I've been doing similar to what you're doing, where it's a live Zoom. I don't have one on the calendar right now. I just did one yesterday, and it's called Your Next Chapter Live. So what we're doing is we're doing Zoom calls called Your Next Chapter Live, and then we're introducing ourselves. We're answering questions in the chat. We're doing a little journaling on the live calls, and then we're sharing what we're journaling and how we're deciding on what is going to come for us in the next chapter. So that's kind of what I'm doing. My website is called stepintogracemedia.com. That's my website where I live off of Substack. But I'm kind of just right now trying to grow my Substack and I'm doing the podcast on there. I mean, I've just turned on the microphone and started talking for the podcast giving little messages to people. I want them to feel inspired when they wake up in the morning. So I've been like recording a message in the evening and scheduling it to go out at 6 in the morning. So that way someone can wake up and listen to a little message of encouragement from my voice, just because I know what a lot of women are going through. I've listened to thousands of conversations from women who have good times and bad times and stories that I've heard. And I just, I just think that the community is the most special part of what we're doing.
Me too. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad we connected.
Me too, me
We just kind of
too.
saw something
I
similar in each
know.
other
It
and
just
just
happened.
it
It just
did. I love
happened.
that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today, Anne
Thank
Marie, and
you.
to everyone that's been watching. We're so grateful to have you, and
Yeah.
we look forward to our next live call, and we'll let you know when that's coming out very soon.
Yes, please feel welcome to join all of the things that we're doing.
All right. I will share your account on my page as well so that they can
Okay,
find you.
likewise.
Okay.
Thanks, Julie.
Sounds good.
Bye,
You're welcome.
everybody.
Have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye.